and giving the holy names and giving books, and somehow people just have a problem with that all the time. Right? So in the same way, Krishna, he's just going about his pastimes. He's just playing and, loving his mother and playing with his friends and, doing all of his little pastimes, making mud patties and holding onto the tails of the calves and being dragged for he's just innocently playing like a little baby, little toddler at home with his family and friends in the village. And then Kamsa's got to send all these demons to try to stop. It's like you're doing something very beautiful, very innocent, very wonderful, very beneficial. And some people have to come along and try to just mess it up and put an end to it. And no, we can't have good things in this world. We can't have spiritual enlightenment. We can't. So this is the nature of the world that we live in, and especially in this age. So, but the point Prabhupada is making here is that these disturbances are going to be there. He says it's not all disturbances. There will be both encouragements and disturbances. So like with Krishna Lunch, there are people who appreciate Krishna Lunch. There are students who love it. There are faculty members that come and support it. There are donors who give to, sponsor it. So there are encouragements and also disturbances. But he said that we shouldn't be disturbed by the so-called disturbances. In other words, we should still push on no matter what's happening. So devotees are trying their best to do that. They're continuing to do Krishna Lunch, distribute food from the center itself. They have a porch, like a little cafe. They call it the side porch, where people can come. So they can't serve on campus, but students can come just a 5-minute walk to the temple and get prasadam. And even though they can't serve food on campus, the devotees are still going and doing kirtan every day. So they're sitting there in the same spot where they would serve food and do kirtan, and they're not serving food, but they're doing kirtan. So they're being a presence. They're putting up a sign saying prayers for healing, for the girl who was hurt, and for the relationship, and just for the world. Whatever healing needs to be done, come and join us. We're chanting, and this chant is a prayer for healing. So they're pushing on. So this is what we need to do without being discouraged. Just flex with the circumstances, adjust accordingly, and just find a way to just keep giving the mercy, keep giving the association and knowledge to people. So this is what the Brajvasis are doing. They're like, okay, there's so many disturbances here. They've named a few disturbances, but we need to protect the children and we need to continue with our activities. So best thing is we'll just leave. We'll leave and we'll go to another place. And this, after all, was Krishna's desire. So it's all good. So sometimes that's another thing to take into consideration, is sometimes it may be Krishna's desire, right? Ultimately, he is the supreme controller. So the fact that, Krishna Lunch got shut down for a while, it may be Krishna's desire that the devotees now have to, meditate on, okay, now what can we do to engage the devotees? What can we do to generate funds to maintain the center and maintain the preaching? So, and maybe that Krishna is pushing them in another direction, or it may mean that they just need to, boil the milk a little bit more and then wait for, things to become more favorable and go back out there. So whatever it is, devotee has to be open to, okay, Krishna, you've done this, you're our best friend, everything that you do is good, so we accept the situation and we're just going to keep on serving you somehow or other, and put our heads together and pray for guidance, pray for your guidance, how to handle the situation. So there are many ways these disturbances happen, right, in our communities, in our families, and in the world. And in all those situations, we should just get together and always deeply pray. Okay, there's this problematic situation, maybe in my personal life as an individual, maybe I'm having a health crisis or something, or in my family there's some upset. In my community, there's some conflict, and the community is torn, it's being divided, or the society, ISKCON, there's some divide in the society that's causing so much conflict on a global level. So what do? We have to just put our heads together and pray to Krishna, and keep chanting and praying for his guidance, and waiting for that inspiration to come. So this is what the cowherd men did. They assembled together, to try to put their collective wisdom together to deeply consider the time, the place, the circumstances, the principles, the goals. And then Krishna gave them the inspiration from within the heart that the solution is to leave Mahavan and go to Vrindavan. So now this is what they're going to do. Okay, so let's see what happens next. Text 28.
Between Nandeshwar and Mahavan is a place named Vrindavan. This place is very suitable because it is lush with grass, plants, and creepers for the cows and other animals. It has nice gardens and tall mountains and is full of facilities for the happiness of all the gopas and gopis and our animals.
And so Jiva Goswami in his commentary on this verse, he quotes a verse from the Niti Shastra that says that one should not give up one's previous place of residence without finding a better place. So this is perhaps one of the considerations that came up. Like, okay, you're suggesting that we leave this place, but we have to, before we leave here, we need to find a better place and be sure that it's actually going to be better, that it's going to be safer for the children. So then in response to this objection, Upananda says, yes, there is a better place. It's Vrindavan, and this place is very suitable. And then he describes all the nice features. There's grass for the cows, there's gardens, there's mountains, right, like Govardhan. And there's all facilities here for the happiness of the cowherd boys, of the cowherd girls, of the animals. Everyone's going to be happy there. So, yeah, the Acharyas give a lot, they elaborate a lot on the description of Vrindavan. Actually, Tulsi-Saki, can you put up that, you have it there, that slide? So there's a map of Braj Mandal here. And on this map you can see, do you have like a way that you can point things out? Like with putting the cursor over a certain area? Okay, so just maybe highlight, you have to scroll down, find Gokul. It's in the... Okay, so Gokul is there, and you see right to the right, there's Mahavan. So that area there, Gokul Mahavan, is where they are presently, where they're having this discussion. And this is where all the demons have been coming. And so now they're thinking, let's go to Vrindavan. So just zoom out there, and you can see Vrindavan is there. Yeah, and Vrindavan is basically halfway between Gokul and Nandishvara, which they're also familiar with. And it's on the other side of the Yamuna. So, and you see how the Yamuna River is kind of dividing. It's roughly dividing one part of Rajamandal from the other. So in the commentary it says that they quote, let's see, it's Jiva Goswami. Yeah, Jiva Goswami quotes a verse from the Gautamiya Tantra where the Lord says, he says, Pancha yojanam evasti vanam me deharupakam kalindiyam sushumnakya paramamrita vahini. So that the Lord is saying that Vrindavan is another form of my body. And it's 5 yojanas wide. So the area of Vrindavan is 5 yojanas wide. A yojana is 8 miles, I think, 8 miles. And he says the Yamuna, so he's talking about, the Yamuna flowing with the sweetest nectar is my Sushushma cord. Sushushna cord. So in the Sushushma cord is so according to like yoga anatomy, in the body there's the 7 chakras, and there are all these channels, all these subtle channels in the body. They're called nadis, or nadi means river, but it's like they're these channels through which the prana flows, the energies, subtle energies and airs of the body flow. And the Sushushna nadi is the one that goes right up the middle, like right up the spinal cord. It's the main like central line that goes from the root chakra all the way up to the crown chakra. And so that's, he says the Yamuna is that. It's that central, it's like the central nervous system or the spinal cord or the main artery through which energies flow of Vrajmandal. I just thought that was an interesting analogy that Jiva Goswami, that the Lord says that this is my Sushushma Nadi. Okay, let's go on. Oh, after I'll probably ask you to put that map up again, but for a while we can read. Yes.
Therefore, let us immediately go today. There is no need to wait any further. If you agree to my proposal, let us prepare all the bullock carts and put the cows in front of us, and let us go there.
Upon hearing this advice from Upananda, the cowherd men unanimously agreed. Very nice, they said, very nice. They sorted out their household affairs, placed their clothing and other paraphernalia on the carts, and immediately started for Vrindavan.
So isn't it amazing that they all just left on the same day? And it wasn't just, one or two or three or four families. It was the whole village, every resident, including all the cowherd men, their families, the Brahmins, everyone, and all the cows. And they had so many cows. Nanda Maharaj alone had 900,000 cows, and all the other cowherd men had also, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of cows. And they got together all of their clothes and household paraphernalia, the pots, the pans, all the cows' things, and packed it all up and loaded up on bullock carts, and they all just left that same day. And the amazing thing is that they unanimously agreed. Right? It says here that eka diya, so diya means like the intelligence, the mind. So with eka diya, with one mind, why? Because all of their minds were on Krishna. And they're thinking, well, if Nanda Maharaj is going, that means Krishna and Balaram are going, that means we're going. If Krishna's going, we're going. The one mind is Eka Krishna Sharanam, right? Just Eke Hakuranandana, right? Just thinking of Krishna. So that was their one-mindedness of the Vrajabasis. And so they all said, sadhu, sadhu. This is very nice, very, very good plan, very good suggestion. So this is real community, right? Community is when everyone pulls together, that we are in this together, right? It's not just because demons are attacking Krishna. Well, they're not bothering my child, Why should we leave? We're doing well here. Our cows are flourishing here. We're getting a lot of milk. We're earning our livelihood very nicely. If you people want to go, but, we're going to stay. Nobody thought that way. They're like, we are... so this is real community, that everyone pulls together for the benefit of all. It's not like every man for themselves, right? It's that we are one unit. We are a unit as a community. We're the unit, and we're going to do what's best for all of us, even if it's inconvenient for, some of us. And so this is what the Vrajavasis do. Set a good example for us of community. Okay, 3132.
Keeping all the old men, women, children, and household paraphernalia on the bullock carts, and keeping all the cows in front, the cowherd men picked up their bows and arrows with great care and sounded bugles made of horn. O King Pariksit, in this way, with bugles vibrating all around, the cowherd men, accompanied by their priests, began their journey.
So here, Prabhupada mentions in the purport that they were very careful to give protection to women, old men, the cows, the children, and the brahmanas. So all of these members of society, these 5 groups, well, not the cows, but the other 4 groups, they were all on the chariots. So the cowherd men were walking along, herding the cows, protecting the cows with their sticks on all sides to make sure that the cows weren't wandering off or that there was no danger to the cows. And then the Brahmins, the old men, the women, and the children were all on the chariots. So all the young men were driving the cows and protecting everyone else. Like that. So this is an ideal society, that vulnerable members of society are protected and facilitated, And any community that doesn't give protection to children, women, old men, and brahmanas is and cows is not going to flourish, right? Because protecting these members of society pleases Krishna, and that's why the Brajavasis do it, right? It's because they do everything for the pleasure of Krishna. So if we want to please Krishna in our communities, then we have to make sure that proper care and facilitation and protection is given to the children, the women, the old men, and the Brahmins, and any cows that we have in the community. Or we can support ahimsa dairy and cow protection in other communities. Okay, we have a few more verses, so let's go on.
The cowherd women riding on the bullock carts were dressed very nicely with excellent garments, and their bodies, especially their breasts, were decorated with fresh kumkum powder. As they rode, they began to chant with great pleasure the pastimes of Krishna.
So this is something the Brajavasis are constantly doing, is always chanting with great pleasure the pastimes of Krishna. Right? It says here, Krishna Lila Jagu Pritya, with great priti, with great pleasure and love. They're chanting Krishna Lila, the pastimes of Krishna. And so one would think that, it's kind of an emergency situation here. The reason that they're basically evacuating, it's like an emergency evacuation of Gokul. So, and why? Because of danger, because of demons who are threatened to kill their children. So can you imagine if there were some demons that were coming in and they were trying to kill our children, right? They're going to TKG Academy and they're like, gunmen going into the school, or, they're just like snipers on rooftops trying to shoot the small children on their way to the temple in the morning or something like. Can you imagine? It would just be such a hellish situation. It would be like a really terrible nightmare. And we would all be thinking, we need to clear out. We need to protect the children. We need to move to another place that's safer. And in the moving process, there would be a lot of anxiety, right? We would be fearful knowing that these snipers or demons or criminals are lurking around, and they could attack at any moment, especially if we're out on the open road, just walking, which is what they were doing. They were walking. Or just on bullock carts. It wasn't like, high security vehicles or anything. So the dangers were still present, and they were doing this emergency evacuation because like literally demons were trying to kill their children. And yet they're not afraid. There's no indication of fear or anxiety. Instead, they're singing, they're all dressed up, they're decorated, and they're just with great pleasure and happiness. They're, just singing the glories of Krishna and riding along on their chariots. So this is something also that we're talking about, how there may be disturbances. So there are disturbances in our lives, in our families, in our communities. And yet, because we take shelter of Krishna, we deal with those disturbances in a peaceful way, right? We can manage them with a calm, cool head, without being too fearful, knowing that Krishna is our protector, Krishna is our maintainer, Krishna is controlling everything. And so we can see everything as Krishna's mercy, even if it appears to be danger. And while we take appropriate measures to restore peace and security, but we don't do it with fear, right? We do it with faith, that everything is ultimately going to be all right, because Krishna is taking care, because Krishna is our protector, Krishna is the controller. So that's something important to think about. And that's the symptom of Krishna consciousness, that we take responsibility. When there's danger, we take responsibility and we take action to remove the danger. But we do so peacefully, knowing that, okay, this is Krishna, and I have faith in Krishna, and we're going to take guidance from Krishna, and it's all going to be okay because of Krishna. Right? Okay, text 34, please.
Thus, hearing about the pastimes of Krishna and Balaram with great pleasure, Mother Yashoda and Rohini Devi, so as not to be separated from Krishna and Balaram for even a moment, got up with them on one bullock cart In this situation, they all looked very beautiful.
So this was the main bullock cart that had Krishna, Balaram, Mother Yashoda, and Mother Rohini. Mother Rohini is Balaram's mother, and Mother Yashoda is Krishna's mother. And it says here that they were very happy hearing about the pastimes of Krishna and Balaram. So Sanatana Goswami says that they were actually hearing pastimes of Krishna and Balaram from Krishna and Balaram. As Krishna and Balaram, these two little boys, they were chattering away the whole time about their own activities. Like, hey, Balaram, remember when this happened? Or Krishna, that was so cool when you did this. Or, they're like just talking amongst themselves about all their different activities, all their different games that they play, and how they dealt with this demon and how they dealt with that demon. And they're like two little boys just, sitting in the chariot and talking and laughing and joking between themselves. And because they're still very small, they're just like 2-3 years old, so their words are very, very sweet, right? When a 2-year-old child talks with their broken language and their sweet little voice, it's like the parents just want it, whatever they're saying, even if they're saying complete nonsense, the parents just want to hear every word. They're just like smiling just to hear the words of the child. So what to speak if they're speaking Krishna Katha? So here these two boys, at this very, very sweet age, speaking with their sweet broken language, their baby language, and very innocently talking about, oh, this happened and that happened. And Mother Rohini and Mother Yashoda are just sitting there next to them, just like relishing every word. Their hearts are melting in bliss, hearing their voices and hearing them giggle and laugh, and, the way they're just moving their bodies, they're talking. Krishna's like, slapping Balaram on the arm or holding his hand, or they're nudging each other and laughing or something like that. Little playful childish antics, the way they're moving their heads and their chubby little bodies bouncing along on the bullock cart. And so so the mothers are just enjoying this immensely, watching these exchanges. So it's very sweet for them. Okay, let's go to text 35.
In this way they entered Vrindavan, where it is always pleasing to live in all seasons. They made a temporary place to inhabit by placing their bullock carts around them in the shape of a half moon.
Okay, and the last one.
Okay, correction. When Rama and Krishna saw Vrindavan, Govardhan, and the banks of river Yamuna, they both enjoyed great pleasure.
Jai. Thank you. So let's go back to that map for a second. Yeah, so you can see, so they started off at Gokul, and then you can see on the other side, on the way to Vrindavan, there's Mathura. So Mathura was the place where Kamsa was living. And Kamsa was like, public enemy number one. He was like the chief demon who was sending all these demons. And the Brajvasis weren't so sure where these demons were coming from, but you can be certain that they had some suspicion that Kamsa was sending them. So when they went, they traveled along the east side of the Yamuna. So they went all the way along the Yamuna till just before Vrindavan, and then they crossed. So they crossed over the Yamuna at that point, and then they entered into Vrindavan from the Yamuna. So they did that to bypass Mathura, keep Mathura on the other side of the Yamuna. And even when they crossed the Yamuna, they did it, the Acharyas say that they crossed in a place that it wasn't near any town or, place where there was population. It was where there was like dense forest, so that they could kind of like do it semi-secretly, because just for extra safety for everyone. So I want to read some excerpts from this book. This is Ananda Vrindavan Champu. It's a book by Kavi Karnapur, and he gives a lot of further detail about this journey. So I won't read the whole thing because it's a lot. If you want, you can go back and fill in the gaps, but I'll read a substantial part of it. So this is about them moving. So now they're in the chariots, Krishna and Balaram, Mother Yashoda, Rohini are in the main chariot, and then all the other Vrajvasis are in their chariots with mothers and children in the chariot. the cows, there's like hundreds and probably, definitely, because Nanda Maharaj's cows alone were 900,000, so that's just 100,000 short of a million. So there were literally millions of cows, and this was a very long procession. So we're going to hear the description here. Multicolored canopies topped the carts. These canopies had many designs and colors like green, brick red, yellow, white, red, and pale yellow. Colorful curtains made of costly jute covered the sides. Flags fluttered above the golden domes atop the carts. The flags looked like wonderfully designed tongues extending to taste the rays of sun. The splendidly decorated carts mocked the flower airplanes of the demigods. So these are very luxurious carts. They're not just like some simple, plain carts that, poor village people. Sometimes when we think village, we're thinking of like, farmers and villages, we think poverty, right? But, and we see that when we go to Vraj nowadays, we see the villagers have very simple things that have some, broken down cart that's, creaking along and stuff. But that's not how it was in Krishna's time, right? In Krishna's village, in Gokul or Vrindavan, the Brajvasis were very opulent, right? They had so many cows, they had so much milk, they had, butter to throw on each other at events and ghee to just like have food fights with, at Krishna's birthday and things like that. So, yeah, they had a lot of opulence, and so they would, everything was decorated, everything was beautiful. There were the gold domes on the tops of these carts and silk flags and all this. So, and it says that they were more opulent and beautifully decorated than the airplanes of the demigods. Indeed, these bullock carts established a new standard of excellence among conveyances. Just as there is no fault in being attached to sadhus, the carts were faultless in construction and beautiful to behold. As devotees become beautiful by engaging in Krishna's service, the chakras above the carts looked as beautiful as chakravaka birds floating in a lake. As the sons of Kuvera are attached to residing in his capital city of Alakapuri, similarly the wood yokes were attached to the carts. The carts held many gorgeous pots made of gold, silver, brass, bell metal, and copper. So they would keep, they had all these dairy products, right? We were hearing about how they had these storerooms full of pots of yogurt and butter suspended from the ceiling, how Krishna would sometimes break those pots and get the butter, and so forth. So all these pots were loaded onto the carts, and they were put into, some of the pots were gold, silver, brass, copper. So even the pots were very valuable. Extending from Mahavan to Vrindavan, the long line of cows and bullocks looked like a separate branch of the Yamuna River. So it was like, there were so many people that it wasn't just, let's say if you had a drone, an aerial view on what was happening, you wouldn't just see like a posse of, a small group of people moving along, but it was like a continuous flow that was basically stretching all the way from Gokul to Vrindavan, like a parallel Yamuna River of people. Like sometimes on a day, like on a Purnima day or a festival day, at Govardhan, there'll be so many people doing Govardhan Parikram. There's just a continuous flow of, there's no break in the procession of people going around. So from an aerial view, it looks like a human garland of Govardhan Hill. It's like a continuous circle of people going around. It was like a continuous flow of people and cows moving along parallel to the Yamuna. Okay. From a distance, it appeared that this long line of moving cows was standing still because there were so many of them. Right? The people thought, perhaps the Suraduni Ganga has appeared here to speak privately with the Yamuna. Maybe another river Ganga has come to speak with Yamuna. Or maybe the unlimited waves from the milk ocean have come here to taste the dust of Vrindavan. So it was a white river because so many cows, and the cows are all white. And so there were a lot more cows than there were people. So from a distance, it just looked like a white river, like the milk, like a tributary coming off the milk ocean. Or has Anantashesh renounced his service as Narayan's bed to come see Vrindavan? So it was like because it was moving not in a straight line, it looked like a snake, a huge snake slithering along like a Nantashesh. Could we be seeing the expanded hood of the king of the snakes? Or is it a necklace of pearls decorating Mother Earth? So very beautiful descriptions here. Okay, I'll skip a little bit. Many cowherd men simultaneously shouted orders to different people. All the words merged into a mass of indiscernible noise. Except with hand gestures, communication was impossible in the clamor. So the combined vibration of carts, people, drums, and the bellowing of cows silenced all other sounds. At last all those sounds merged quietly within the ethereal element. Learned men proclaim that sound is byproduct of ether. So a lot of this was a very boisterous, tumultuous procession in which we heard about the women. They were singing songs about Krishna Lila. The people are all talking, and there's apparently drums. So there's kirtan going on, or maybe they were playing drums and accompanying the women's chanting of Krishna Lila, their poetry, their songs that they would write. The cows were mooing. The men were shouting, right? The cows, hey, cows, get over here. Let's go. Yeah, whatever, right? They're like shouting at the cows amongst themselves. They're shouting to each other, like, oh, your cow's over there. Oh, let's go this way. Or, hey, catch up with us, right? So there's all this going on. And, a lot of noises. Boarding their cart, Yashoda and Rohini appeared like two valuable jewels. The cart itself looked like a mountain cave enacting a pastime of displaying its storehouse of costly jewels in the form of these two lovely ladies. Their sons Krishna and Balaram shone as the embodiments of benediction for the three worlds. With their all-auspicious sons sitting on their laps, the two mothers achieved all perfection and looked very beautiful at the same time. Yashoda and Rohini simultaneously glorified Krishna. From a distance, it seemed that they were quarreling. Because they had to yell so loud. They were like yelling so loud to be able to say something and be heard. And they're glorifying Krishna and Balaram, and it looks like they're yelling because they're like, this Krishna is so amazing. Yeah. I like this analogy of the cave, like a mountain cave. So inside the caves, there would be jewels, and the jewels would be glittering. So when you approach the mouth of the cave and look inside it, you can see the glittering jewels. So these carts were like caves, and the jewels inside were Mother Yashoda and Rohini, that they were so beautiful and splendidly effulgent, especially with Krishna and Balaram on their laps. Hundreds of armed sentinels stood guard around the carts. When the bullock procession left Mahavan, it looked like the personified wealth of the capital had suddenly risen to touch the sky. It seemed that the goddess of the city personally led the way to beautify the journey. All that was left of the capital was the land. At that time, the advance party of Nanda Maharaj returned from Vrindavan to join the procession. So they went ahead to make sure to decide, the place where they would stay, and then they're coming back to join the procession. And they had armed sentinels. So although it was a cowherd community, it wasn't only cowherd men. It wasn't only Vaishyas, but there were also Kshatriyas. They were guards that would be armed with weapons and guarding. And there were also Brahmins, of course, and there were also Shudras who were assisting and doing different tasks, repairing things and building things and all that. So it was a complete society. Since such a vast party could not cross the Yamuna before sunset, they decided to camp on the banks of the river. The elderly cowherd men, even without receiving Nanda's order, erected their tents and prepared for the night. Invisibly, the goddess of the city helped everyone quickly establish their habitat. So it was getting dark because they'd left the same day, and it was a long journey, and they were going on foot. From Gokul to Vrindavan is roughly 25 miles, I think, or 25 kilometers. Anyways, it's some distance. So it was a long walk. Right? It's too long to go in one day, and especially when they started, and they didn't start in early morning because it was after the meeting and the decision and the packing. So they had to stop somewhere on the way, and they set up a camp. So what they would do is they would put all the carts in a semicircle, and then they would the open end of the semicircle would be either up against the river or up against a forest. And that way they would keep all the cows inside the semicircle, and they would do all the cooking and activities, whatever they had to do inside the semicircle, so it was a safe space. And so I think this will be described. Yeah. Please hear about that splendid city which arose on the bank of the Yamuna. A kaleidoscope of colorful tent canopies covered the 10 directions. The cowherd men expertly erected walls made of cloth to surround that temporary city of tents. As in an ordinary city, they made 4 pathways bisecting the 4 directions. They also established footpaths and marketplaces to facilitate the residents of the city. So all the cow people, just for one night, but they put up, little stalls where they were selling things, necessities, snacks, or, toiletries, or, whatever they might need for the night was on offer there. And clothes, gumshoes, maybe somebody forgot their gumshoe back in the village, something like that. So all these things were available. And while sitting under the evening sky and chewing their cud, the numerous white cows looked like a collection of soothing moon rays, or a small lake of milk. As more and more cows sat amongst them, that lake expanded to appear like the ocean of milk. Sunanda, Upananda, and other respected relatives met and conversed with Nanda in his tent. Afterwards, they went to their own tents. So the cows are all, now it's nighttime, they're resting, they've been walking, so now they're lying down together, and it looks like the ocean of milk there in the midst of all the carts. Meanwhile, others unloaded all the necessary items from the carts. After unyoking the bulls, the caretakers fed them and let them take rest. The servants busied themselves buying and selling different products, while the kitchen helpers cleaned and prepared for cooking. I'll skip a little bit. Satisfied by eating their fill and seeing their calves standing nearby, the cows stood peacefully while the cowherd men milked them. So they were on the move, right? But they still had to milk the cows. The cows need to be milked every morning, every evening. You can't just be like, sorry, we're traveling, we're not going to milk. No, the cows need to be milked. So even in that temporary encampment, they're milking the cows. The milking of so many cows produced a tremendous sound that resembled the vibration created at the time of the churning of the ocean of milk. Krishna derived great pleasure from hearing that beautiful, sweet, deep sound. While milking the cows, the gopas loudly called their names. Hey, Davali, hey, Shavali. And the cows responded by mooing. The men affectionately caressed the cows as they gathered around them. After taking their evening meal, the Brajvasis relaxed. So they set up a kitchen, makeshift kitchen, and they did all the cooking. And then they all sat down and took prasadam together. Afterwards, they relaxed and happily wandered about the campsite. The sentries showed off their techniques for staying awake through the night. Seeing this, the Brajvasis felt confident of their expertise, so they returned to their tents for a peaceful rest. So they all went to sleep, and the armed guards stayed guarding through the night. 3 hours before sunrise, so that's pretty early, 3 hours before sunrise, the wives of the gopas woke up, bathed, dressed in clean cloth, and performed Vastu Puja. Then they churned butter while singing many enchanting songs glorifying Krishna. The sound of the gopis' jeweled bangles and ankle bells blended harmoniously with the deep, melodious sound emanating from the large churning pots. That auspicious vibration easily removed all misfortune from the universe. The directions amplified that sound by responding with their echoes. Considering it improper to spend any more time with their husbands, the demigoddesses woke up at once. Then they listened with rapt attention to the sweet sound of the gopis churning butter. So what to speak of milking the cows? The gopis, they're also churning the butter. So any cream or yogurt they had carried with them, they needed to make it into butter before it would go bad, right? Because the dairy products go bad. But if you make it into butter, then it's going to last a little longer. Make it into ghee, it will last forever. So they had to continue with all of their duties. And they had to get up early, and they did it early in the morning because later they would be moving, they wouldn't be able to do these things. So these women were very austere, getting up before everyone else. Okay. As the sun rose, everyone prepared to cross the Yamuna River. Following Vraja Nanda's order, the gopas called the cows by making the sound, hee, hee. Mooing in response, the cows entered the water. As they swam across the Yamuna, the cows exhaled strong breaths of air. So now this is probably the most eventful and challenging part of the journey is crossing, right? Because they had all these cows and they had to cross the river, and they had all these carts and everything had to get across, and there was no bridge. So the cows went in the water, and all the cowherd men went in the water too. All the young, like anyone who was young enough to go in the water. So the old men were on the carts, but all the cowherd men were in the water with the cows, driving them across the water and making sure that they were okay. So the cows are going across the water, and the water was deep, so they're swimming. Like cows can actually swim. So they're like swimming across the water, but slowly. And the cowherd men are making sure, and they're like breathing, they're huffing and puffing because, it's difficult. And they're probably a little stressed because cows are not creatures of the water by any means. So they're exhaling strong breaths of air. The heavy water-soaked tails of the cows hung motionless under the water. Keeping their heads and humps above the water, they flowed with the currents and finally reached the Yamuna's opposite shore. The hornless, light-bodied calves felt great happiness as they quickly swam across the water. So the small calves, not the babies, but the light ones, because they float nicely, they're just kind of floating down the current and kicking their feet and having a good time swimming. Crossing from all directions in front of their mothers, the calves reached the opposite shore. So the calves are passing their mothers. They're like, hey, slowpoke. The gopas carried the newborn calves across the Yamuna by hanging them around their necks and holding their soft legs with the left arms while using their right arms to swim. The mothers of the calves followed behind, crying anxiously. So these newborn baby calves, they're too small to swim. So the cowherd men, they take the body of the calf, so the belly of the calf is behind the neck. My grandfather was a dairy farmer, so I saw a few times when he had to carry the newborn calf to the barn, and he would do the same thing. He would put the calf he would bend down and put the calf over his shoulders like that and be holding the front legs here and the back legs here, and the body of the calf is across his shoulders. And he would go like that carrying the calf. So this is exactly what the cowherd men did when they were with the newborn baby calves to cross the river. But they were holding all four legs with one arm like this. So they had the four legs across the chest, left arm here, and with the right arm they're swimming. So imagine you're swimming, you're kicking your legs and going like this with one arm, and you've got a calf on your back and you're holding its legs, and probably the little thing is kicking and moving, and the mothers are like worried about the newborn babies, so they're like, and the little calf is, and you're trying to swim. So this was a big endeavor for the cowherd man. The tall, skip that. Many highly decorated golden boats. So this is how the carts are going to get across now. Many highly decorated golden boats exhibiting the epitome of artistic craftsmanship cruised along the Yamuna. The best among those boats had an ornamental cabin topped with beautiful flags gently flapping in the breeze. Krishna and Yashoda, Rohini, and their maidservants boarded that boat. Krishna enjoyed watching the rows of small waves in the Yamuna. The wonderful effulgence of Krishna's body enhanced the beauty of the Yamuna and made it look like a sparkling gem. Leaving Yashoda's side, Krishna leaned over the edge of the boat. While supporting himself with his left hand, Krishna stretched his right hand under the water to touch the bottom of the boat. Anticipating some danger, the two mothers tried unsuccessfully to stop Krishna from his frivolous play. He's like, typical little kid, like leaning over the edge of the boat to touch the water. And it looks like he's going to fall in, and the mothers are trying to get him off of there, but he's not moving. With great concern, Nanda Maharaj boarded the same boat, quickly picked up Krishna, and sat him on his lap. Undisturbed, the boatmen continued rowing steadily across the Yamuna. The remaining men and their families boarded other boats and happily crossed the river Yamuna. After ferrying all the people, the boatmen used boarding platforms to load all the bullock carts and cross the river again. So first they brought all the people across, like ferries, ferrying them across the river, and then they went back and they loaded the carts onto the boats and they brought the carts across. There's another description. Jiva Goswami says that, and these pastimes happen again and again, right? So they happen sometimes different ways. So Jiva Goswami describes that one time when they're crossing the Yamuna with all the carts, what they do is they don't have boats at that time. There's no bridge and no boats. So what they did was they put and the carts are made out of wood, so the carts also apparently float. So they put one cart in, and then they tied with all their ropes. They have a lot of ropes for herding cows. So that with the ropes, they tied the next cart onto the first cart, and then they put it in the water, and then they tied that to the next one. So then they tied all the carts together, and they made like a bridge with the carts. And then all the people walk across the carts. And then when all the people on the other side, then they got a rope, and they start pulling all the carts out of the water like that. So that's pretty clever, right? Little work of engineering. So one thing that struck me is how even though they're fleeing because of danger, but they're very blissful. You know, it's like a celebration. It's like, you know, it sounds like it's like a joyous procession, like a Ratha Yatra procession, where there's beautiful carts full of flags and colors, and everybody is happy. They're singing, they're playing drums. On the one hand, they're a little worried about Kamsa and demonic attacks, but they're not letting that damper their enjoyment, right? Because in Krishna's pastimes, everything is enjoyable, right? It's just flooded with rasa, all different kinds of loving exchanges and relationships between Krishna and his parents, the cowherd boys, the cowherd men, the cows. They're all helping each other. They're supporting each other. The men are scoping out the new place. Then they're coming back to help. Krishna's almost falling in. Nanda's jumping on board. The sentinels are there. They're protecting the people, protecting the cows. Everybody's helping, cooking. They're joining hands. And some people are cutting vegetables. Some are making fires. Some are serving it out. People are packing. People are unpacking. People are buying. People are selling. So they're all just working together very harmoniously. Is the ideal society or community to bring everyone to a place of safety and joy. So this is the goal of communities, of Krishna conscious communities, and we can follow in the footsteps of the Rajbasis and have these beautiful communities providing safety and happiness for all members. And whether we stay in one place or whether we move to another place, we'll always be happy in Krishna consciousness. All right. Any questions or comments about this glorious move? Yes, Jaishnav. Try pressing it and holding it, the button. There we go.
You were saying the semicircle was either facing the Yamuna or the forest, right?
Yeah.
In purport of 35, it says there was no need to make fences all around. One side was already defended by thorn trees, and thus the thorn trees, the bullock carts, and the animals encircled the inhabitants in their temporary residence.
There we go. So they had thorn trees. Yeah. Yeah, the thorn trees, you see even nowadays in Braj, they use these thorn trees for purposes, right? You see, like, instead of building like metal fences or wooden fences or something, they'll just get they'll cut the branches off the thorn trees and just pile them up or stand them up in such a way that, people can't get through, animals can't get through. So, yeah, they did that even in Krishna's time. Create a wall of thorn trees so that the cows don't go there, people don't wander there, and it's safe. Thank you. Anything else? Tulsi Saki.
This was such a beautiful visual just to follow along as you were saying. Also appreciating how throughout this pastime, how to live and how to make decisions were highlighted. Like you mentioned in the beginning, it was saying, according to time, place, and circumstance. And that was such an important point where only they could know what is actually going on, not depending on someone living somewhere else to make those decisions for them.
Yeah.
So that was a very important aspect. And also how, because Krishna was in the center, they all could unanimously make the right decision and follow that. That was such a beautiful highlight you brought up with the sense of community. And also the point you were elaborating on, how everybody was joyful, and Mother Yashoda and Rohini were joyful even if they're fleeing, because they're so focused. So they're making the right decisions. They're making the moves to stressful decisions on one level and uprooting and moving. And yet they are joyfully performing these activities.
And they're
because-
fearless.
Yes.
Yeah.
So such a beautiful, life lessons on how to live in Krishna consciousness. So that was very beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Very nice reflection. Vrinda Sevika.